podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal, business, investment, or tax advice. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinions and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of RCM Alternatives, their affiliates, or companies featured. Due to industry regulations, participants on this podcast are instructed not to make specific trade recommendations nor reference past or potential profits, and listeners are reminded that managed futures, commodity trading, and other alternative investments are complex and carry a risk of substantial losses. As such, they are not suitable for all investors.
Welcome to the Hedged Edge by RCM Ag Services, where we're getting out of the field and onto the mic to bring you weekly market updates, commentary from commodity experts, and monthly interviews with the biggest names in agribusiness.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Hedged Edge. Really excited here today. This is really an honor for me and a lot of different reasons, but most of all, I had the opportunity to speak with my good friend and longtime esteemed colleague, Jody Lawrence. He's on the line with us today. Say hello, Jody.
Hey, Jeff, how are you today?
Oh,
Thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. We got yourself, and then after we talk, actually going to have a chance to get out and talk to some farmers all across the country. I'm going to do some interviews out in South Dakota, Kansas. Where else are we going today? Let me think. We're going to Texas. So this is going to be great. So let me start by letting you introduce yourself just a bit, Jody. You've got more than 2 years of experience in the agriculture business. So go ahead, give us your story.
Well, I started in the business 1991, helping out my brother-in-law with his marketing plan. I was an accounting major in high school, so the numbers always came kind of naturally to me, and found that the variety and the volatility of the futures markets were something that drew my interest. My mom grew up on a small family farm in Ohio, and with my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. And so I understood the community. I understood the farm lifestyle, even though we did not farm and I didn't grow up on one. Been around it my whole life. And then when we married in and my brother-in-law needed some help, I began helping him. And that slowly developed into working on the futures and trading side of the business. And then as rules and regulations changed in the late 90s, was able to start writing the market commentary in a very early fashion of what I send out today. And then once
did you have to write an essay in order to get into the family, or?
No.
Okay, just checking. All right, you're good. Okay, go on.
And so we, and as it has evolved over the last 25 years, the nice part about it is with the advent of technology, we've been able to, everybody now has a cell phone, has better bandwidth, and we can reach a much larger audience simply because everybody has easier access to getting online and getting emails with information. So we've been very fortunate. Helena Agribusiness is been my largest customer for the last 19 years, and do go out and speak at their locations throughout the Midwest. They've got over 500 retail locations and wholesale customers, and so it's always nice to get out in the field, and it reminds me of who I'm trying to help when you're in these great small towns meeting all these wonderful people. And
don't forget, I've been out there with you. The food and beverages along the way really also add to the value of those trips.
Yeah, if we don't do any meetings this year, I'm afraid I'm going to have to. I'm actually going to lose weight instead of gaining.
Go down a few pounds.
My spring crash diet, but it's so it's a lot of fun, and I'll make 60, 70 speeches normally in a regular year. Write the comment just about every day, so it'll go out over 225 times a year. and the distribution list right now is just over 6,500. So
yeah, we got to say that again. That's impressive, because when we first met, I think the list size was maybe 3,000, 2,500, if I don't.
Yeah, and since we've been doing this, I guess for about 10 years, it's doubled. And thanks to Helena and Helena's growth and Helena's support of the newsletter, we've been able to get out and get it to a lot more people, and getting positive feedback, which rallies like we're seeing right now always help, seem to put everybody in a better mood, and they have nicer things to say, as opposed to when I was writing 3 months ago about the possibility of 280 corn. So.
Right. That was some scary times. We were actually talking about the insurance being the main driver to protecting for protection to farmers. So wild few months that we've been on here. So, well, great. That's been great. Obviously, I've appreciated having you on the team, and really you're head of our research team. And as we kind of get going here today and moving forward, I'm looking forward to doing these, every week or two, depending on your travel schedule. If you're not traveling, then I guess maybe we'll be doing it more often, and be that next new technology piece that you talked about that helps get the information that you share on a regular basis out to even more people. So,
yeah, that's certainly this year is going to. I'm not looking as this year as being a challenge. I'm looking at it as being an incredible opportunity, because nobody likes to travel. I enjoy all the people and the places that I go, but going through the Midwest in the middle of the winter presents its own set of challenges and wears a person down. But the more technology we can do and the faster we can get that access out there, I think will really just add a whole new level to what everybody on farm and everybody that's already thinking and looking at their books for 21 is going to be able to help make some decisions. So I think it's going to present a lot of opportunity that without the pandemic, I don't think we ever would have fully researched and been able to leverage.
That's a great segue into today's topics, which is, well, here we are. We're post-election day, a few days, and there's some rattlings of the markets really in favor of supportive of grain prices. What do you think has been the main driver here post-election? Is it truly the anticipation of policy change? Is it more to do truly just the fundamentals, what's going on in South America with their weather, as if it was any sort of normal year? Is it China? Are we all now friendly with China and we're going to be singing their praises? What's the driver here in your mind? Just a few days removed from the election.
Well, the first thing was we've known that La Nina has been strengthening over the late fall and soon to be early winter, and that historically about 60% of the time will adversely affect South American yields. And this year you can already see it, because the southern third of Brazil and almost all of Argentina are well behind normal precipitation. And everybody needs to remember where they are in their planting cycle. It's November for us, so it's the 11th month, so take 6 months off of it. They're in their May time period right now. You can imagine that if you were running 4 or 5 inches or more deficit of rain, trying to get it in the ground and get it to germinate and come off to a good stand, it's a nervous time for the markets, because in between La Nina, that certainly set the stage. But all of this really started, when you go back to August, when we made the bottom shortly after the August crop report, which on its face was bearish to neutral, but certainly in no way bullish. But the one thing that kind of started happening was the USDA, we believe, through their various categories that they can use, whether it's feed and residual, whether it's disappearance, just blatant mistakes of previous years by going back and changing the 2019 yield and lowering it, all of a sudden you ended up with some fairly significant numbers. And while they weren't overly bullish, like I said, what it did, it provided a floor. So on August 1st, when we were talking about the possibility of corn trading well below $3 on the futures board, the next thing you know, that 280 potentially became 310. And then right after the August report, I believe it was August 10th, the market went down, traded new contract lows in the December corn contract at 320 and just could not go any further. And at that point,
that was we were talking that being the insurance guarantee, right, for the majority of the farms that were out there.
Yeah, if you took out 85% CRP, crop revenue protection, right, you in between the February price, if you take 85% of that, that basically gave every farmer who participated at 85% a floor under his market at $3.30. So that we traded underneath where everybody with revenue-based crop insurance at 85% would have gotten some sort of payment, but it didn't stay down there long enough. And it's certainly nobody's going to get any revenue assistance once we after last month, because the price would have been set, and clearly it would have been well above even what the February price was on average. So
that's a really interesting point, because just in my mind, I'm thinking markets tend to over exaggerate from panics or over jubilation to the upside. And in this situation, if you're saying that the majority of people, we don't have the numbers in front of us, I don't, have some sort of floor where there's no need to panic anymore because, well, the insurance kicks in, that's going to automatically eliminate a percentage of the market that is going to, in effect, panic due to prices being far too low, below their cost of production, or it basically eliminates the need for that risk. And so markets naturally are going to pause. Do you feel that that's what happened?
That certainly was part of it. I think the reductions in the August report, and then the increase of prevented plant acres, which nobody saw coming. Right. The USDA made a couple changes, like I said, that weren't necessarily bullish, but were certainly eliminated a lot of the ugly bearish news. And then in September, when yield was cut and some demand projections were raised, next thing you know, we went, and obviously the drought in Iowa that kind of got into a lot of late season in the Western Corn Belt. As the yield was trimmed and as the demand picked up and as the prevent plant acres got larger, the next thing you know, we chipped away in pretty short order, and this is all through the USDA and the weather. We chipped away almost what you have to figure was about 500 million bushels of corn. Right. And 500 million bushels of corn, regardless of where you are, is a very significant number, because we were looking at a 3 billion plus carryover domestically on end of July, early August, before the real teeth of the dry weather started affecting Iowa. And then the next thing 500 million bushels has historically been worth we kind of a rule of thumb under normal conditions being corn price between 350 and 450, so that every 250 million bushels is going to move the futures market somewhere between 20 and 25 cents. So then when we kind of figured that, okay, we've lost about 500 million bushels in the last 3 to 6 weeks, next thing you know, that hits the number. We go from 320, 330 to 370, 380. Right. And then as China and the U.S. kept the Kmart blue light special on, and
there you go.
Yeah, that's a very dated reference. China just slowly and surely, without ever telling us or telling the rest of the world, that one of two things happened. They either drastically misjudged their government stocks and the condition that they were in. And it's more than likely a combination of all of these things, and that their corn crop wasn't nearly as large as they expected it to be.
Well, they had massive flooding too, right? So
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Yanktees River, the potential dam overflowing. I mean, they had massive
Seven Gorges Dam, I believe, is what it was, almost collapsed.
Right.
The world's largest dam. And
did you see the
just a lot of things.
Boeing, was that doctored or real? I don't know.
Everything is subject to fake news these days, so I don't know. But when you look at what China did, and it was their thought, and in 9 out of 10 years they could have done this. If they knew that they were going to be big buyers into the market, why not wait for what looked like to be the certainty of an enormous, far record-breaking U.S. crop in mid-July to the first part of August? And then what happened? They basically painted themselves into a corner where they were planning on buying from August 15th forward, when we should have been making harvest lows, a lot of hedge pressure on a 15 billion bushel corn crop. And what happened? China didn't have any choice. They got stuck, and they started buying, and they kept buying. And they've shifted a few things, and there are rumors about others, but they bought some sorghum overnight, and there are more talks of them, because they need the feed to buy additional DDGs and ethanol. So this is going to be very interesting, because it looks like now it's certainly a long shot. I think one of the betting sites that I looked at today, Biden was favored to win. It's approaching 90% now. I think it was at 85 last night, but as the votes are all counted from those the states that are left, and everybody feels like
is that Biden's why were you betting on the Tigers, or are you betting on the election?
A little bit of all of them.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
And with the Biden is believed that he's going to be very friendly to renewable energy sources, ethanol, biodiesel, and that he will take a much softer negotiation tone with the Chinese. So if the China's buying a lot already, and if for some reason if Biden does win the election, and they get into it will never be in a friendly relationship with them. It just goes from being hostile to less hostile. And if we get to a point where South America has some problems and China is forced to keep buying because they had a plan and they stuck to it at their own detriment, then this is, next thing you know, it's not difficult to see how we displaced almost 1 billion bushels of corn in the world carryover just in the last 3 months. And that's how, and I mentioned it in today's comment, it's very, very unusual when you look at the December 20 chart for December corn of this year. You've had the contract low and the contract high within 3 months of each other, which never happens, because
especially during harvest, right? I
mean, because you look back over the course of what can happen in the 3 years, the trading life of that contract, to have everything hit the market from ultra bearish to ultra bullish within 90 days is pretty unprecedented.
Let's take a minute there and talk a bit about that scenario, and really what the farmers should be thinking about, in terms of how they position themselves to take advantage of the current higher prices. Obviously, you've seen your recommendations: sell as much as you can, but hold back a percentage if you've got storage. Let's talk a little bit about that. And then also the key point that I want to emphasize as in all of these podcasts is that we cannot live in a vacuum, and we cannot live just in the moment, which is in this case 3 months. We need to be thinking 1, 3, and 5 years ahead. But in terms of marketing, you need to always be looking ahead. And So first, just let's talk quick current marketing strategies for people that, obviously have storage available. They have the ability to put some in the bins. Are we thinking we want to still hold some back, even though the prices are extremely favorable?
Well, the carry on the board and the basis levels have motivated everybody as much as possible over the last 2 months to sell, to deliver it as soon as it came out because of the Chinese demand, because of basis. A lot of places I've talked that had big yields and weren't affected by the drought, like Iowa and eastern Nebraska, they were still seeing basis anywhere from 20 to 40 cents over where it historically was, and that just shows you, And so by the time you add that in with the fact that there's no carry on the board to speak of, and that a while about before this break, say 2-3 weeks ago, all of the prices out to July of 21 on the board were almost even at parity, which is unheard of. And what that tells you is that you've got a very demand-driven market right now, that they are paying up for bushels, and they're going to do everything they can to motivate the farmer, if he's got storage, to just go, heck with it. I only want to touch it once. They're going to give me more money. I'm going to pay off my loans. I'm going to save my debt. I can come in and buy all the call spreads I want for, 10 to 12 cents of the $4, the $3.90 to, plus that I'm getting for my corn, and have
a little bit of money to re-own it on the board.
Yeah. As a percentage, it's a tiny percentage. It's, it's like 2.5 to 3% that you just have to invest back in. And then if you see some things like have happened yesterday and today, we did sell off at the close, but corn was still higher. When you see some outside circumstances, and next thing you know, corn's 20, 25 higher, everybody sleeps better knowing that they've got upside protection. And especially if things get ugly in South America, Argentina in particular looks to be in the bullseye for the worst of it. If it stays like this, then having that just makes more sense. I understand people hate to not be utilizing their on-farm storage because
it costs. It's a cost, but it's rewarded by almost $1 rally in the crop. I mean, take it.
Yeah, and and just take it. I think everybody has to take 2020 for what it is, even as a non-pandemic year. That this happens once every 10 years, and more accurately, once about every 15 years. Because even in 2012, at the very height of the drought and the height of the loss, the market topped in the middle of August and consistently fell from there to where we are now. So it's just a unique situation that you can't fight last year's battle this year,
right?
Or this year's battle with last year's strategy, because every year is completely different.
I think that's a really good point, is that one, we're always going to have to go out and plant the crop again. So, what happened last year is not going to be the same as this year. In 2019, we had the rally happen in June. Okay. This year it happened at harvest, very rare, like you say, 1 in 10 years. So, all right, let's look forward a little bit. What's the marketing plan then for the 21 crop? I mean, assuming we get everything cleaned up here in 2020, you start looking at 21, where can prices get to? And because that's what everybody wants to know, where can they get to? But let's be smart too along the way. And I think you've always been a proponent of incremental selling. Can you give us your current thoughts?
Yeah, the smartest people I know in the industry, and those people are the farmers who've done extremely well, and they started out with small leveraged operations, and now they manage and own huge cash funded operations.
Keeping cash funded. Yeah. No debt.
They're doing it out of their front pocket and not the bank. Although, right now with interest rates where they are,
Right.
there's, some school of thought that taking on a little bit of debt is not the worst thing you can do, because we're certainly not going to be seeing, 2.25%, 2.5% interest rates, long term. When you talk about it, but what all these people had in common was made a real effort to understand and know all of their break evens and adjust them regularly. And as yield varied, or as yield went up or down, as costs went up or down, and then they put themselves in a position where the rallies like we've seen that we saw August, September, and October, they're making themselves money somewhere, whether it's on the 20 crop, whether it's on the 21 crop, whatever it is, that this rally is making their production and their asset of their farm more profitable and making it worth more. So you just have to take out small bites when they present themselves. And I know a lot of people are incredibly frustrated because when corn rallied and, they from 320 to 365 and they sold some corn at 365, everybody at that point still didn't understand the enormity of it, because the reality is what our business model has to predict, which is impossible, is A, the weather, and B, the Chinese. And I'm not sure which one is less predictable. And when you have both of those, the way it developed this year, with the Chinese change of position coming into the export or the import market at such a pace, and then the loss of crop and the acreage, you had two incredibly bullish things happen simultaneously right in the middle of the most bearish landscape we can probably remember since 2003 or 4, back when LDPs were still going on. So it's you just have to be nimble and don't beat yourself up. And that's where owning stuff on the board helps too, because it didn't seem like the best bet, but you could have bought all the upside protection you wanted, call options that will, the December options that'll expire right before Thanksgiving this year. You could have bought all the 380 calls when a 380 420 spread for 6-7 cents. Right. You have 34 cents, 40 cents total upside, and you could have sold it and said, okay, I've paid for a lot of stuff already. I bought my crop insurance for $25 or so an acre. What's another 6 cents a bushel at this point? Because if this market continues to go, then all of a sudden my 365 looks more like a 390 or potentially $4. So unusual year, but it's becoming, each year is becoming more and more interesting. We had the spring flood of 19. We had the late season drought and the Chinese difference and the pandemic. You can go on and on about 20. And now what's happening with, the election. But every year you need to have a plan to where you can sell rallies. And the safest way to do it is to be very cost effective on how you either set a floor underneath it with put options, or how you address whatever upside opportunity may be after you've already sold the cash side of it.
That's great advice. And I think that kind of dovetails into a favorite segment of yours when I've watched you speak at the different Helena events, is bold predictions. So if I had to ask you for one or two bold predictions coming up, what would be top of mind?
Watch Argentina. If Argentina's total corn crop falls below trend, that wouldn't even have to fall substantially below trend when you start talking about 2, 3, or 4 bushels per hectare, acres and our vernacular. Right. Then all of a sudden you've got some crazy things that could happen in corn, and it at this point, with the delays in seeding, we already know that whatever is harvested in Brazil and Argentina won't be available to be shipped to China for, at least another month to 6 weeks after they were expecting it.
Yeah.
And if you continue at that pace, and which keeps our window open longer than normal into the late winter and early spring, then you have some yield loss to it. The next thing you know, you've got world carryover of beans in particular very tight, and the U.S. would have to plant and be able to harvest a trend line crop over 90 million acres. And the same applies to corn, because there's some, even with the loss of ethanol, which we thought was going to be the absolute death of the corn market, when the first shutdown happened in March, we're still going to use 5 billion bushels of corn for ethanol. And that's still over 33% of 178.5 bushel per acre yield. So you've got, the ratio right now, and I wrote about this today, when you look at the beans to corn for the new crop 21 prices, they're just a hair over 2.5 to 1. And 2.5 to 1 is kind of where you expect it to stay, so that it doesn't swing, swing acreage wildly one direction or the other. And right now, what that tells me for next year, with what everything that the market knows, is that the U.S. is, and the world markets are trying to motivate U.S. farmers to plant, back to a couple of years ago, somewhere about 90 to 91 million acres of each corn and beans, simply to have any sort of cushion under this market if something goes wrong in South America.
So watch South America, and then in turn watch how big of a crop we intend to plant. I mean, it becomes the kind of newsworthy items to keep an eye on. Okay.
Absolutely, and this is always the hook in it. You can look at how everybody has placed their wagers, so to speak, on the further out months, and the 21 and 22 new crop prices, December corn and November beans, are lower than where we are now. They're profitable, but they're substantially lower than they are right now, because what everybody has to assume is that we've got some sort of normal type yield coming out of South America, normal acreage, normal planting conditions, normal yield trend line out of the U.S., because you can't just make a really bullish or really bearish bet and say, oh yeah, I can see into, a year from now and know that the U.S. crop is, going to be huge, or it's going to be disappointing. So these are the types of rallies. Every rally makes you money. It's just, you have to figure out which year to sell.
Right. Good. Well, no, this has been a ton of fun, Jody, and obviously love having you on. And I think we're going to get after this a couple more times. But before I let you go and we jump out to some of the farms around the country, I do have some non-farm related questions to throw at you, a couple curveballs maybe, and not too big of a curveball. We know each other pretty well. It's pretty tough to mess this up. But all right, so most important question. You live in Tennessee. What type of bourbon are you going to go for? If you had to make a choice, what's it going to go? What's going to be pulled out of your cabinet?
Without a doubt, it's Weller, either Special Reserve or Antique. And that's a go-to. And since you can't find them in the bars very often, Makers or Woodford, because those are going to be a little more readily available. But neat, or with just a tiny cube of ice. If I ever hear of anybody on my newsletter mixing Weller with Sprite or Coke, they will immediately be cut off a subscription.
Be removed. And now when you built your house, you put a ice chest in there, an ice maker. Was that purposely for the bourbon, or was that for the kids?
It was for all of the above, because we used an enormous amount of ice, and it plays well across the board. The kids, when we built the house, the kids weren't quite into the bourbon like they are now, that they're all grown adults and out of college with jobs. But it's perfectly positioned right next to the bar.
Okay, I like it. No, it's good. And I've obviously enjoyed a few with you myself. So you grew up in Memphis. Best food in Memphis on Beale Street. It doesn't well, let's say it doesn't have to be on Beale Street, but if someone said, "Hey, I'm going to Memphis, where am I going to go?" Is it Germantown Commissary? Is it somewhere on Beale Street? They eating catfish? What are they going for?
Central Barbecue has kind of moved to the forefront of what everybody expects in Memphis barbecue.
Okay.
If you go to Memphis, your go-to is you stay at the Peabody, you watch the ducks, you eat at least once at the Rendezvous in the alley across the street. And that sounds completely sketch, but that's what it is. You're walking right across the street down this alley, and then you walk the couple blocks over to Beale Street and enjoy the music and walk up and down. And if you're there late enough, what was it? Mid-South Cafe, where the tamales are as good as there are anywhere in the country if you're a tamale person.
That's good. Well, I hadn't had tamales in Memphis, so next time we're there.
It can't go wrong catfish anywhere. But if you're going, because all the rage now is about Nashville hot chicken and everything else. But if you go to Memphis, find the drive-through locations for Jack Pirtle's chicken.
Yeah.
And far and away, it's the guilty pleasure of all Memphis trips for me and Brady.
That's good. It's good. Yeah, we'll have to have Brady on here for sure as well. That'll be we'll do a 3-way one of these times. Two more questions for you. What is your big golfer? What is the very best round you've shot in your life, in your career? I'm going to call it a career because we all know you like to play.
I've shot multiple 9-hole scores of 29.
Okay.
But those are
usually put them together.
The 29s are usually after I've shot a 45, and my since this is a PG-13, my care meter is very low at that point, and then it just gets hot and everything starts going in, or I get the beer intake right. But a handful of 67, 68s, and recently I got played really well, shot 70, and my advanced AARP age 70 seems to be my the ceiling of my lowness.
Well, I thank you for helping me shoot the round of my life earlier this year when we actually were able to travel and play there in Nashville. I won't need to share with anybody how high of a score that was, but pretty proud of the fact that it was with you. Last question. What are you going to get Beth for Christmas?
I think I just took care of that. But the big thing this year was with our daughter getting married. We had some unexpected expenditures at the wedding pop up. So I don't think anybody's expecting anything too large, but we may take a nice vacation and just try to finish 20 and start 21 in a better fashion than most of the year went. So that's probably just it. We'll probably just take another long weekend or something in January, since I'll be able to do all my meetings like this, do them over Zoom, and I won't be schlepping through Midway Airport on 50 different Southwest flights.
Got to figure out a way to maintain your companion status, though. That's going to be a challenge. So.
The wedding, I think all the expenses for the wedding, Southwest told me that I now have companion status for the rest of my life.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Jody, thanks for joining us today. We're obviously, like I said, going to do this again. I'm going to take a couple. I'm going to be jumping on a couple of calls with some farmers, as I said, across the country right after this, and we'll go from there. But thank you again.
Absolutely, Oz. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to doing it next time we are able to do this.
Okay, next up, we're heading out to Kansas. We're going to be in Hoxie, Kansas, talking to Jake Moss. Jake, turns out You and I have had a lot of time together out on the road. We've shared some good meals. I've got to witness you coaching some pretty impressive basketball games. We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the last few years. So, Jake, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your time coming out here, helping us get the producers on the right track. I know it's been a big help. Guys out here really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, that's not a problem. I love it. Love to, you guys have kind of embraced me kind of like a local out there. I truly can't thank you enough. And so let's talk local. You got basketball season coming up in Kansas. You got, I don't know. You tell me, is he a 5-star recruit? Harlan, what's the story? He's a 7-footer and he's a senior. What's going on with the Hoxie Indians?
Right. So we're a small town. So he's playing football right now. They're still going, but basketball season will start here in 10 days.
10 days.
Like I said, you've seen him play. It's very, very weird having a 7-foot kid out in this area. You don't see it very often, but he's a big asset for our team. Being embraced out here, it's like I've said it before, you're Norm from Cheers at the Elephant, our local watering hole. So you walk in, you're a regular there for a while. So when you come back out here in January, we'll have to hit it back up and everybody can see Norm again.
That's right. I'll go see Karloff there at the Elephant.
He's no longer there. So you're going to have to get acquainted with the new people.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty friendly to most people that serve. So
yeah,
especially if it's good beer. All right, cool. Well, let's jump into it. Obviously we talk a lot, but for the listeners here and people that are watching, the drive out there that I made, by the way, 2,500 miles to see you and back in July. The crop was amazing. Everything we saw up and down, all across the plains and then up and down through the hills and out to your area. It's going to be a bumper crop. What actually unfolded as weather conditions kind of changed? And I know you guys seem to still be right in the sweet spot. I mean, we're mostly through harvest here. What's it looking like?
So yeah, guys are just trying to finish up. Like you said, for most of the year, we looked really good out here, and it looked like for 3 or 4 years in a row we were going to have a big crop. August came and we didn't get any rain. So I know we're in an irrigated county. We have a lot of area that's irrigated, but for those guys that were dry land, that dry August really shrunk some yields. And so I think once we got into the fields and saw what things were like, guys were explaining to me that, during that August, it's like a rubbery cob now. So it was going through, it was harder to shell grain. The yields weren't as impressive or as what they thought they would be. So I think that dry August trimmed some of the yields. But for the most part, I think guys did okay. We won't have what we had the last 3 years, but for as good as it looked there, the first 3 months or into July, I think guys are a little disappointed.
No kidding. Yeah, it's interesting how just that last push on the crop really makes a difference. And then you guys being in your irrigated part of the town country. Now, you're saying, did you have to use as much water this year, or it was kind of a lower utilization year in terms of your irrigation?
It was about an average year. Really all just across our area, the rains were real scattered. So you would talk to a guy who maybe caught some of these 30, 40 point little showers throughout the year. And then you talk to a guy, maybe 5 miles away from him that didn't get anything. So just from the areas that we've seen, and I think it was like this, across the country, it was real widespread of who caught some rains and who didn't. And I think at the end of the year, those 20, 30 pointers that added up is going to be a big difference for guys as far as how many bushels they raised.
That's good. And do you have any crazy weather events like the rest of the country? We had DeShero in the Midwest. We've had hurricanes in the Delta. Did you guys have anything wild come through?
Luckily, we avoided all of that. I know in about the middle of harvest, we had a couple nights where we had some big winds. And really, it was if the rows were planted north and south, that's where the wind was blowing, was from the north. it would blow some ears on the ground. And I know some guys lost some bushels like that. If you were playing it east-west, the crop stayed up pretty good. But, last year, a lot of guys, wind came up, it blew a lot of the stocks down. They could only pick going one way. This year, we didn't have any of that. We avoided a lot of the hail. We avoided a lot of the wind. So we were pretty fortunate on that front.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good to hear. Now, talking about unfortunate events, we had COVID this year, and that shut a lot of things down. Different parts of the country, different parts of the agriculture supply chain. You guys have a lot of feed yards and ethanol plants in your area as kind of your demand for the crops and the corn, things that you're growing. What were you seeing then, like during the kind of height of it, in terms of hiccups in the system to where we are today, and how has that also affected the biggest thing, which is the change in basis?
Right. So as far as the actual spread of the pandemic, we are kind of naturally social distance anyway.
That's right.
We didn't really have many businesses or things like that shut down. Cattle need fed every day, no matter if it's snowing or there's a pandemic or what. So those businesses had to go.
Right.
And they kept going. And then as far as, the basis goes, here kind of early fall, we were 25, 30 under, and now it's just, slowly and steadily increased as we've gone throughout harvest. And I think that speaks for, a lot of things. There's the shrinking bushels that we had. I also think the demand is there. And, now that China's buying a bunch of beans and getting involved in corn, and so is Mexico, I think that's also driving it. So we're having a demand-led rally. A lot of our co-ops, now have gone to 10 over.
Okay.
Just in our local area, if you go south of here, I know there's big premiums where you can get 50 and 60 cent pushes. So Milo has been a big deal out here too. Milo is $1 over the board, which I haven't seen for a long time. So basis is getting stronger. The prices are rallying at harvest time, which is kind of unknown or unheard of, but I think we'll take whatever we can get.
I think that's really almost a perfect storm, but in the right direction. It's kind of like the top blowing off the market, from where we were in corn at near $3 to, over $4 today. And like you're saying, if you've got a chance to pick up some basis that's even beyond 10, now you're talking 40, 50 over in some areas. Those are some really serious prices. I guess what are you recommending guys do right now? People sometimes, I feel like, particularly in farming, they'll just always want to believe that it's going to continue higher. It's always going to go. It's, $5 is going to be here. But, if you can lock in $4.10 now, $4.20 plus a positive basis, what do you do?
Well, it depends on kind of where your grain's at now. If you're at commercial storage or elevators, there's no carry in the market right now. If you look out to March, May, July contracts for corn and even beans, it doesn't make sense to pay the 4-cent storage. So if guys have, grain in those types of scenarios, what we're recommending is, sell it at the location, whether it's the elevator, get the cash now, pay down on lines of credit or loans, and then it's much cheaper to re-own on paper. And there are several different ways we can do that just by straight buying the board. One thing that's really popular for our guys right now is doing call strategies, buying calls on the board. And that way, if this thing does turn around, you're not forking up a bunch of money for margin. And at the same time, you made a great sell at the elevator. On the other end, if prices are surging like we think, you've got the money and then you bought calls and you're still reaping the rewards of the market going up. If you are in a type of situation where you have bags or storage, that's where we're thinking, along the lines of this basis could get better. And so we're kind of doing a sit and hold type scenario, mainly because guys are, still harvesting right now and trying to get the crop in and they can't do any hauling. But once they're done, we'll look at, what delivery months do they want to deliver in? What basis are we looking at? And then, how do we get that done? And so right now we've got guys stretched out all over the board on when they want to deliver. but I think that basis will get stronger, and we're kind of hanging tight right now.
I think that's a really interesting point about the storage and the bags, because, you think you've shared with me, and we've talked about this, people have invested heavily in either the equipment that it takes to put the grain into the bags, or into into storage facilities, on farm storage. So now you're sitting there, we're in a scenario where you've got higher prices right now, you've got stronger basis, and you're saying, well, I've got all this storage. Should I be putting everything in there, or should I be selling and taking advantage of these higher price markets? From what I hear you saying, it's kind of a mix between the two, and maybe even a mix between three, where what we're really talking about is take advantage of these higher prices, sell a portion of the grain, potentially re-own it on the board. We can get into those discussions more detail with people. Maybe keep 15, 20, 30, 50%, how much into storage? And there's a question. And at the same time, the third piece that people think about right now is forward pricing, at least locking in some of their futures, the future prices. So you can lock in futures prices if you're going to store. So maybe if you could just comment on that.
Right. And so the big thing that we've experienced here in the last couple of years, and with the help of FSA and their loans, is it's now a good time to put up storage. For one reason is the interest rates. Two, last year we had basis go from anywhere from 30 over to we were getting 30 under. Then by the end of the year we were getting guys 30 over. So I mean, that's a big 60-cent swing. And when you look at things like that, as far as the storage goes, you can really pay that off in 1, 2, 3 years, depending on kind of how we get going. So as we look at this, so once we get guys done with harvest, we'll look at this and say, okay, like we said, there's no carry in the market. There's nothing really flashy about holding it to July when you look at straight prices. So what we can do is we can lock in some of those prices with some puts. That way, if they still want to have some upside left in this, if it keeps running, they have that. But if it goes down, we've at least got the price locked in. But what we're really looking for there is the basis to continue to get stronger. And that's why you guys, if they have their own storage or bags, that we're recommending that. We may haul out at different periods of the year. We may have some that, 40% may go JFM, some may go, April, May, just depending on what that operation can do. But right, so we're not really looking for the carry in the prices, but we're looking for the carry in the basis that to come up here this summer.
That's good. That's a good segue into the next question I have for you, and it's on China. It's what is everyone's opinion of China on your side? Clearly, if they want to buy and it's going to push our basis higher and we're going to make more money, that's great. But is that truly the opinion of the farmers in your area? Do they supportive of China? Do they feel that they're undermining us? I mean, what's the opinions going on?
Well, it's all about what have you done for me lately, right? So right. Farmers here, I would say, at the beginning of the summer when the trade war was going on, they were probably a little bit pessimistic about China.
Okay.
And I think the farmers in our area just have maybe some trust issues, I think, with what's going on over there, especially leading to some of the virus talk and how that was handled. Right. But, now that they've swept in and, bought a bunch of beans and have got these prices to soar, things aren't so bad now. But, I think as long as, we have some turmoil in the elections here of what's going to happen, and I think depending on who gets elected, that will change a few things. But right now, China is really buying strong, and the prices are going up. And even if some guys had some stuff priced this year and they've missed out on some of this rally, then you're still going to plan again next year. And so you got to be looking forward to 21 and what some of those numbers look like right now. And China, really, their recent buying has been a big reason why we've came up this high.
It's a really good point. I mean, at the end of the day, during harvest, sometimes it's so easy just to look at what's right in front of you, and it's current prices. We'll getting the crop out of the ground, and then the current prices. But looking ahead, start looking at 21. even 22. I mean, look forward, look for opportunities, and really know what your cost of production is and what your profit goals are. And Jake, you're obviously the man to talk to get that done.
Well, I think one thing, you're exactly right, is everybody's so short-term driven.
I'm right because I said you're the man?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
But everybody is so short-term driven, and they don't even think, hey, I'm going to plant corn next year. And when you look back, the past 5 years of the acres amount that has been planted, let's just say corn, and really, if we talk about the genetics of seed and how resilient these things are now, we're going to have some big yields. And so you're looking at a whole nother crop year where say we do have a 180 bushel yield and we have 90 some million acres planted, whatever that may be. When you look at the board right now, and you can see that December 21, we're running pretty close to $4. I think guys have to see that. And when you look and say, okay, well, these summer months they're running 420, 417, 415, and the December's not to 4 yet. I think people are planning on another big crop. So you do have to be a little forward thinking, and it's not like you have to, rush to the board and get 100% stuff locked in. But I think getting a start and a base helps you market better throughout the year, because when guys get started and they put a percentage of their bushels on, right, they just have better marketing plans. But when they wait and they don't put anything on, it just seems like they fall and lag behind in that regard.
I think that's smart advice, and you segued into yet again my next question, which is the last farming question, and then we'll get to some fun softball questions, which we'll have some fun with. But what do you think is going to be the biggest innovation in agriculture over the next few years? Is it, you just mentioned seed? Is it going to continue to be seed? Is it a combination of seed and chemicals? Is it going to be some sort of efficiency and energy usage? What are you thinking?
Well, everything goes into play into that. But when you talk, the seed is the biggest thing. And the genetics of all these, it seems like you can grow anything in a sidewalk anymore with how things are resilient to drought, specific types of chemicals, whatever it may be. Been in the office here 5 years. It just seems like every year people are having big yields. The technology of a lot of stuff, is nice for the equipment and all that. Variable rate irrigation is coming up to be, into play out here as well, where they're actually using a technology and putting more water on some parts of the field as opposed to others. We're actually in a water restricted area called Lima, where irrigators can pump 11 inches a year. What they're trying to do is we're over the top of an aquifer. They're trying to preserve that. And with over the last 5 years of research, they've showed that the aquifer has actually gone back up. Oh, so in our area, that's going to be, a big percentage of what guys do. And then that will also change some of their crop rotations, because it's a 5 year stretch where they get 55 inches. Well, you get 11 inches a year, but that's not set. So 1 year you can grow milo and use 5, and the next year you can use 16. So guys will have to be strategic about that and how they use that. But I would say those would be the two biggest things in our area going forward.
That's good. I mean, obviously your family farms, you're talking to guys every day, and you're not you're not a seed salesman, you're not a machine salesman. Each one of them is going to have have their piece is going to be the edge. But in actuality, technologies continue to advance across all of agriculture, and it's helping increase the yields, year in and year out. So that's good.
Right.
All right. So last softball easy questions. This one, I hate to even ask, but go ahead. Tell me, what's your biggest, boldest prediction for the Kansas City Chiefs? What's going to happen?
We're going to run it back, I think. So, really this time last year, they had I'd say maybe 3 losses on the schedule. They're learning a new defense, but, the defense is going to continue to get better. I know they've been hit a few times, but, every team is adjusting how the Chiefs are running their offense. So now they're trying to put a bunch of people, in the secondary and not let Mahomes throw. And so the Chiefs are figuring it out. They brought in Le'Veon Bell. They got, the new rookie, the Clydesdale. And so they're figuring out how to run the ball. And really the line's banged up. So we're going to get some of those guys back and get even stronger. I think we're going 2 in a row.
Nice. And are you planning to go to some games this year?
I would like to. I think tickets are really hard to come by with COVID and the restrictions. I think I'm trying to remember how many they're letting in, but the price of tickets quadrupled because I think they're only letting 25% of the people in. So to make up the cost.
Oh, really? So that's the first I heard this, quadruple the price. Wow.
So I'm not entirely certain, but a guy who had season tickets said that if he wanted to keep them, he had to pay 4 times the amount. And that was their way of making it up. So
that's nuts.
Yeah.
You and your dad, you guys went to, was it the AFC Championship game last year?
Yep, that's correct. So
what was it? Was like 4 below?
Well, it was a day that it was 5 degrees, but I think everybody was so jacked up, nobody even really noticed it. It was kind of an interesting postseason. They trailed every game last year. I mean, they were down like 24 to the Texans and got down early to the Titans and
had to rally back
down to the 49ers as well. So the thing about them is they've won a lot of different ways. They've won ugly. They've won playing their way. They've grinded some stuff out. So that's why I think they're versatile and going to run it back.
Good deal. All right, another one for you. So I hate to pitch you against your hometown here, but is it if you had to choose Beehive over in Colby versus the Elephant right there in Hoxie, where are you going? It's Friday night. You and Megan, you got some time. You're gonna go.
That's a tough one. They're 2 different locations, so
I know.
It depends on if you want, like a greasy cheeseburger, pool hall kind of feel, or if you kind of want, more of a luxurious night out. So I think we go 50-50. One time we're going Beehive, and then the next time we're going the Elephant. I can't give you a straight answer on that.
Yeah, that would have been tough. Yeah, I shouldn't have thrown Megan in there because that's like, she wants to go to a nice place. So
yeah, usually whatever she says we do, right?
Right. Well, we'll do the Beehive again next time I come because that was that place. That was solid.
You can't go wrong either way.
Can't go wrong. And then the last question is sticking with predictions. What's it going to be for the Indians this year? You guys make it to districts? You go in state? What's the goal? What's the plan?
Well, hopefully we have a postseason.
Okay.
How things going? There's going to be a lot of wishy-washy things going on. I think a lot of games are going to get moved or postponed or canceled. A lot of it depends on the health of the team. Football's still going on. We do have one kid hurt right now that he's trying to get back. And then really, we made it to state last year. We were 21-3. Hope to make it back. Hope to have the run there. And we're really, the kids. We're a deep team. We have a lot of kids that have experience. It should be a fun year. I just hope everybody enjoys it and we get to have it.
Yeah, that's right. It's do whatever you have to do to keep the kids playing. That's the way we've taken it, the approach we've taken here too. So
yeah.
All right, Jake. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time, jump on the podcast today. And it's always great to see you, of course, and looking forward to catching up in January in person for a Beehive burger.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
You've been listening to The Hedged Edge. Links from this episode will be in the episode description of this channel. Follow us on Twitter at ag_RCM, like our Facebook page under RCM Ag Services, and visit our website, read our blog, and subscribe to our newsletter at rcmagservices.com. If you like our show, introduce a friend and show them how to subscribe. And be sure to leave comments. We'd love to hear them.